It's a place to work, a place to talk, maybe tell a story or two. It's a place to tinker with belief and ask what's good and true. There are things to keep and things to toss or see them differently. You'll find us in the Soul's Garage. Come share a laugh or three. The Soul's Garage, the Soul's Garage. Whatever your model of faith, let's question, ponder, wonder why on any path you take.
Hello and welcome to the Soul's Garage. I'm David Ezekiel.
And I'm Paris Donahue, and we've opened the garage door to hang out with you and tinker with this vehicle called faith in order to keep it running smoothly in all of our lives.
And one of the things that we believe that helps our lives run smoothly and is part of our faith perspective is that to do so and to have that well-being in your own soul, you need to have joy in your lives. And now I know most people are out there pursuing happiness. I mean, isn't that part of our constitutional way of life is the pursuit of happiness? And believe me, I pursued happy. I mean, she was a nice-looking young woman.
I knew you were going to go there.
Well, actually, that was her nickname, was Happy. Not sure how she got that nickname, but that's another story that we might.
Kind of nice to think about how she got that nickname, but I digress.
But that whole aspect about going from pursuing joyfulness in your life rather than happiness, I think is a construct that will suit you and your life and your faith a lot better. I mean, let's face it. The last several years have been, pretty stressful in all of our lives. I mean, there has been the presidential turmoil. There has been COVID. There has been inflation. The advent of AI that has created anxiety about the possibility of jobs and job layoffs, and that has occurred for others. For many, it's they've graduated from college and they can't find a meaningful job out there, and so people are looking to find happiness in all sorts of ways and means and fashions. And the aspect is, I think, like what John Claypool once said, happiness is a cotton candy syndrome. It just doesn't feed you very well. But if you look at joy and joyfulness nourishes your soul, and it's something that goes much, much deeper. Now, I know we like to sing that song, I've got that joy, 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 joy down in my heart.
Hey, don't give up your day job.
Oh, you don't think I can sing? Well, be that as it may.
Moving on.
Moving right along. But that aspect is, how do you find joy in your life? And when you find joy in your life, sometimes it's in the dark, difficult moments of your life that joy will sustain you.
Whenever I think about joy, I can't help but think about my Uncle Jimmy. He ran a little, what people would call a little country store outside of Fayetteville, Georgia. And Jimmy was one of those people that just exuded joy all the time. He created an atmosphere at the store where people just loved to come and hang around and talk and tell lies and swap jokes and stuff like that. And Jimmy didn't exactly have an easy life. He had some health issues. He had actually one of his legs was shorter than the other one, and so he walked with a decided limp all of his life. And things never went perfectly easily for Jimmy, but he always had a joke. He always had some barb that he could throw at you. And I remember the last conversation I ever had with him, he had just been diagnosed with cancer. And he told me a joke over the phone when I called up to tell him how much was praying for him and appreciated him, and he wanted to keep it lighthearted like that. And when he died, I remember standing next to one of my aunts, standing next to the casket, and she put it perfectly. She said, he just doesn't look like himself because he's not smiling. And so whenever I think of joy, I think of Jimmy, and I wonder, I've thought about what it was about him that enabled him to be so joyful all of his life. Now, let me just say right here at this point that the absence of joy in somebody's life could be due to a medical issue, like depression. And we're not going that route today. I wanted to say up front that if that's something that you need to deal with, I highly recommend you see a doctor or a therapist. And I speak as somebody who has done that myself. I've been down that road. But we want to talk about joy and happiness in the larger sense of the word.
Our culture prizes happiness and tells us that we should be happy. I mean, isn't that ingrained in the psyche, especially from the American Constitution that I referenced a little bit earlier? See, I did learn history in school and things like
I thought that was the Declaration of Independence.
Like I said, I didn't learn history in school very well. But it's ingrained there.
Who cares where it came from?
And it says, that we are free to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But, pursuing happiness, it's kind of illusory and transitory. I mean, commercials tell us that we can find happiness with skin smoothing serums. Didn't you like all that alliteration?
That's
right?
really special. That really is. Yeah.
But that we can find happiness with skin soothing serums. That we can find happiness with weight loss medications. We can find the pursuit of happiness through self-help books that tell me that the secret to my happiness is simplifying my stressors and mediating my mood swings. And what it does also is it provides happiness to those that wrote those books, and it gives them royalties and such things like that. And there are other ways that we can try and pursue happiness. We can narcotize our lives away, either through drugs or alcohol or sex or anything else like that. But, if you've bought all of those products and taken all that advice, let's just face it, happiness never seems to stick around for very long. It's fickle, it's fleeting, and it's riding in like a wave and washing away just as quickly.
Yeah. Michael Piazza was approached by someone who was a parishioner in his church, wanted to know what he could do to make himself be happy. And Piazza said, well, if finances are your problem, there's always embezzlement. If you're not happy in your marriage, there's always infidelity. But
that won't lead to happiness very long. Your spouse finds out you might be dead.
That's right. Your teeth smiling at you from the other side of the room. He said if it's just a general feeling of malaise, life's getting you down. Well, there's always, you can soothe yourself with drugs and alcohol. Any of that helpful? And the guy says no. And I get your point. And Piazza said, yeah, that's precisely it. He said, in my experience, happiness is fleeting, but joy is something that comes as a byproduct of a life well lived. Mm-hmm. And I think he's right about that.
Yeah, because joy is not dependent upon the circumstances. It's the foundation to life. It lies deep within the soul. It does not react to life. It actually frames life. It fashions it. It shapes it in its own image.
And that's how my Uncle Jimmy could tell me a joke even when he was dying with cancer, because it was something that framed his life and not just an addendum to his life.
And then you can see that in other people. Sometimes I've been to the hospital and met individuals, and then and lying in the bed, and you just think, when they recount all of their issues, their problems, and you walk out the door just thinking, OMG, I'm so depressed having been around them. And then you go see some other people that that are in the hospital, and they're bright and they're cheerful and they're happy, and you just go, wow.
Yeah.
Can I tell a John Claypool story here?
Sure.
Okay, Claypool. If you haven't figured this out by watching our podcast, we both share kind of an admiration to John Claypool, who was a minister, deeply insightful and thoughtful man. And he tells a story about going and seeing a couple of his parishioners in that same vein, in the hospital, and walked in, and one said, he said, "How are you doing?" And he says, it's terrible being in here. Nobody comes to see me. The bed is hard. The sheets are scratchy. The food tastes terrible. And Claypool said he walked out the door feeling depressed. And he decided, he didn't want to go see another parishioner. And so he decided, well, I'm here and got to do it anyway. He walked in the door. And he saw someone and said, I'm so sorry that you're in the hospital. He said, it must be terrible. And she said, well, no, they're taking good care of me. And he said, well, you don't have a whole lot of family. And she said, well, that's all right. The nurses and the orderlies come by and they look after me and they take care of me, and I'm glad for the company. And he says, well, let's just face it, being in the hospital, the bed's probably hard and the sheets are scratchy, and she said, well, no, it's okay. I'm just fine where I am. And Claypool noticed the food on her tray, and he says, well, let's just face it, hospital food's not that good. And she said, it's okay. And she said, and let's just face it, she said, I'm getting old, and I've lost a lot of my hearing, a lot of my sight, and most of my teeth. In fact, I've only got 2 teeth left, and I'm just very grateful that they both hit. and all of a sudden, what a tremendous contrast that there was with between these 2 parishioners that he said that he had, and he said because one of them looked at life and had a joyful spirit about her. It's sort of like what you're telling about your Uncle Jimmy.
Exactly.
And that's just one of the things about life. And sometimes, I've known parishioners myself who had a really good outlook on life, and mostly part of it came through the pain that they lived through.
Yeah. We've learned that most of life's great lessons are learned through pain. I hate to say that, but if that's something you haven't discovered, you will. But on the other side, without a frame for making sense of those struggles in life, without a frame for making sense out of that pain, it's awfully easy for somebody to quickly slip into cynicism and despair. Joy can provide the frame that we're talking about. It's bigger than the narrow parentheses of my birth and my death, or how I happen to feel about it at any given moment.
In the Bible, Jesus said, as recorded by John, I have said these things to you so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete.
Yeah, if you read the verses prior to that, you find out that the things that he's talking about, I've said these things to you, those things were him talking, they were instructions for abiding with him and abiding in him, and basically saying, hanging in there with him, making a commitment to him, and then following through on it. In other words, getting involved in something bigger than oneself, or just what's in it for me. I love the late Eugene Peterson had a book one time about following Christ and discipleship, and he defined discipleship as a long obedience in the same direction. And those are the kinds of things that Jesus was talking about that would give them joy. In other words, making a commitment to something bigger than yourself and sticking with it. Now, that's not exactly what our instant gratification culture wants to hear. They want to hear that, I can take this pill, or I can read this book, or I can have this experience and have all this joy in my life. Jesus said, and other wise people down through the years have said, no, the way you find joy is that long obedience to something bigger than yourself in the same direction.
Yeah, and that's the truth. We all want to be happy. We want to have our pain, our discontent. All want to have our troubles to go away instantly, magically. I mean, let's face it, I do too. I don't want to deal with issues. But the fact is, if there's something underneath that is in my life that gives me joy, it's helping people work through their issues, work through their problems, and to seeing them come out on the other side with a plan, or with at least a product for their life, something that will take them beyond just the immediacy of the swamp that they may be in at the moment, to go to the other side, to get through that storm of life that sometimes come, to get through to the other side, come out on the other shore, and be satisfied, personally satisfied in your life. One of the things I like to, phrases that I like to use is with a congregation that I was once with. And we went through a lot together. And the congregation reversed its decline and started looking forward with hopeful optimism. And at the end of the day, after I left, I like to look back on them, and I like to say, I am sinfully proud of what they did. I mean, I'm just going to be, tell you, that gave me a lot of joy looking back on it, reflecting back on it. And even that's what sustained me. I mean, like I said, it wasn't an easy journey going through all of that with them, but the fact is, they gave me joy in knowing that they were putting one foot in front of the other to get out of the morass that they were in. And that's what joyfulness is. It has to be cultivated.
Yeah, cultivated over time. It's not something you can dispense from a drive-through window. I like to say I think America's the only culture that could have invented the drive-through window. Because we want everything right now, and this whole idea about it being cultivated is really tough. There's a marvelous story from ancient China about a woman by the name of Ling whose son died, and it just left her so grieving and so down and so sorrowful, and just could not seem to get past it. So she went to see her village's holy man and said, isn't there some potion you can give me, or incantation, or wave a magic wand or something to take this pain away? And he said, really, there's nothing like that. But he felt so sorry for her. He said, he had an idea. He said, I tell you what you do. You go and find a mustard seed from a home that has never known sorrow, and bring that back to me, and then I'll whip up something that will take your pain away. She said, okay. So she started off on this journey to find a home with a mustard seed in it that had never seen sorrow. And the first home she wound up going to was a very prosperous home. Looked on the outside like everything was going great, but the mother of the family was dying. And the family didn't know what to do, and so Ling stepped in and nursed the mother and helped the family any way that she could. And when the mother died, she helped to make all the arrangements and stuff like that. And the family was so appreciative. And then Ling said, but I have to keep going. I have to find a mustard seed in a home that's never known sorrow. And the next home she went to was much less prosperous home. It was a single mom with several kids, and they lived on a farm, and she was having trouble putting in the crop by herself. So Ling hung around and helped her put in the crop and cultivated and bring in the harvest and stuff, and everything was looking so much better. And then she said, okay, I got to keep going on this quest that I'm on to find a mustard seed from a home that's never known sorrow. And she discovered that everywhere she went, no matter what home she went into, whether it's prosperous or poverty-stricken or in between, she never found any place, any home that had not known some kind of sorrow. And the longer she stayed on this quest, the more she began to realize, you know what? I really don't need that mustard seed anymore, because I've rediscovered my joy, and my joy is in service to other people. Joy is not discovered. It's not uncovered under a rock somewhere. It's nurtured through practice. There was an Indian poet, and I'm going to say his name wrong, but it's something like Rabindranath Tagore. He wrote...
Actually, you're right.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow. I'll write that down. I got one right for a change. I put the emphasis on the right syllable. He wrote, I slept and dreamt that life was joy. I awoke and saw that life was service. I acted, and behold, service was joy.
The whole aspect, the illustrations that we've been using, the conversations that we've been having with you, focuses on that aspect. If you can get your mind off of yourself and get your mind off of just trying to find that elusive little thing we call happiness, and if you can keep practicing that, then joy will take root in your life, and you will find those moments where happiness comes in, and it gives to you a deep satisfaction that lasts a longer time than just the taste of cotton candy.
Yeah. Cotton candy, Claypool said, is really sweet and delicious in the moment, but it just evaporates so quickly. And you got to have more of it, to get that same experience. That's why looking for happiness is like the cotton candy syndrome. You can get it briefly, but it just doesn't last. So from our perspective, joy is a prescription for humility and compassion instead of the newest miracle medicine or drug or whatever it might be, or experience or whatever. It's less about self-help and more about helping others.
Well, speaking of self-help at this particular moment, Mama's got some stuff cooking on the stove, and one of them is bacon that I smell wafting out this way.
Time's a wasted.
And so Mama's in there, and she's going to be helping us out by
She got bacon. That'll help me out. Great.
That's going to provide joy to my soul and my stomach as well. Right. But so anyway, with the aroma coming out, wafting out into the garage, and I think I hear Mama calling also, saying it's dinner time. Yeah. So it's time to close the garage door and just head inside.
So until next time, I'm Paris Donahue.
And I'm David Ezekiel. And we'll see you soon here at the Soul's Garage. The Soul's Garage was written and recorded by Paris Donahue and David Ezekiel.
Our theme song was written by Adam and Brady Beard and by me, Paris Donahue, but they did most of the work.
And they performed and recorded it, Adam and Brady Beard, that is, and you can hear them in the background.
Our podcast cover art was designed by Nancy Arndt.
And we're appreciative of our relationship and intimacy coordinator, Amanda Hugginkiss.
Follow us on Facebook and Instagram and maybe TikTok as soon as somebody figures out what to do with it, or any social media that happens to say nice things about us. Because let's face it, we're nice people.
Definitely. And you can tell us that by sending us your comments to thesoulsgarage@gmail.com.
The Soul's Garage is a production of Two Old Geezers Studio.
And we hope to continue being two old geezers for a long time to come.